Tommy with Elevation Every Weekend. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you a product I've been looking for and I've finally found. It's a really small, rechargeable, battery-powered tire pump or compressor, which I've been looking for to add to my kit for my fat bike adventures. It is the Fanttek X8 Nano 20 PSI pump. Fanttek is a company that makes a wide variety of consumer-grade products for home and auto use. And while their list of offerings is lengthy, from small vacuums, power tools, and battery packs, the items I've been most interested in from them are their small battery-powered portable air pumps. So I was really interested to see if this small X8 Nano 20 PSI pump would be suitable for the lower tire pressures we all run in our fat bikes, and if it would have the power to air up large volume tires. When fat biking in the winter, we are typically running really low single-digit pressures to get the flotation and the traction we need in the snow. However, on occasion, hard braking or hitting a section of frozen post-hole trail will sometimes break the bead of the tire and allow a little air to escape, essentially burping it out of the tire, and that may leave us running essentially too low of a tire pressure where we would need to add more to continue riding. Or sometimes during your ride, especially if you're riding the backcountry like I do, conditions may change drastically, requiring you to adjust your air pressure to optimize ride performance and preserve the trail. As a result, I've been looking for a solution aside from my mini hand pump that I carry in my lumbar bag. While the pump I've carried for years does work, I've always found it to be a bit cumbersome and a hassle to use on the trail in the cold. And it seems like it takes forever to add air to the tire. And while I do have another portable air compressor that I do carry in my truck regularly, it's too large and heavy to carry with me on my rides. This Fanttik X8 Nano is really small. It's about the size and not much heavier than a bar of soap. So let's see if this little pump has the power to air up various fat bike tires. As you can see, the pump comes with a short hose of about 5 inches in length that will thread onto any straighter valve. If you're running Presta valves like I am on all of my bikes, you will need to add an adapter for those. Or you can do what I did, which is also find another short hose designed to fit both types of valves. Before we get to the fat bikes, I did test this out on my Trek Pro caliber, which is a hardtail 29er, and it's running a 29 by 2.2 inch tire in the rear. While it definitely did inflate the tire, it did seem to really slow down after about 15 PSI. And again, since the pump is only rated for 20 PSI, it couldn't quite get it to the pressure I would typically run in it, but it did get it to a rideable pressure. So on your mountain bike, if you do have higher volume tires, or you're a lighter rider that only requires about 20 PSI or less in your tire, it can do the job. However, if you're someone that would want or require a single pump to handle all bike applications, Fanttek does make a pump targeted for bikes. It's rated for 150 PSI, so it can easily do road bikes. It's called the X8 Ace pump. And while it's still very portable, it is larger, heavier, and more expensive than this X8 Nano. But I have linked both pumps down below in the description and in the pinned comment if you'd like to investigate them more for yourself or purchase them. So again, now on to the actual reason for this video, fat bike applications. I started this pump with a 100% charge, and all of my bikes are running tubeless setups as well. I first tested it on a lower volume 27.5 by 4 inch tire. From essentially zero tire pressure, it aired this tire up to a stated 10 PSI on the pump in just over 5 minutes. I did verify the pressure reading independently with my manual gauge, and according to that, it was actually carrying even more air than what the Nano stated. But frankly, the Nano was able to air up the tire to far more PSI than I would ever run in it. So the first test was a success. Next, I brought out the highest volume tire I have on hand, which is a 26 by 5 inch tire. Again, starting from essentially 0 PSI, it was able to air this tire up to a stated 8 PSI in just under 6 minutes. So obviously the significant increase in volume did take it a little more time. And again, I did verify it with my manual gauge, and it was reading a little higher on that gauge than what the Nano indicated. But once again, on this tire size, the Nano aired it up to a point that was much higher than I would ever run it even in the summer. So test 2 was also a success. One of the things I was really curious about with this being an air compressor is how loud it would be, and it's really not very loud at all. The website states it runs at about 65 decibels, which for context is about the sound level you'll hear on the highway in your SUV. But here is an example of me talking while the pump is running. This tire is really firm. Again, probably more pressure than I would ever run into it. We'll stop it there. I still need to test this pump in cold backcountry conditions and see how it handles that kind of stress, especially at much higher elevations because I'm often above 10,000 feet here in Colorado. I'll also want to verify how well the battery withstands the cold exposure while out on a regular 1 to 2 hour ride. Even though I didn't film it, I did do one final test since it was successful on the fat bikes, but did come up short on the mountain bike. I did want to see how it would handle my 29 plus bike. And again, I started from 0 and it aired it up to the 12 to 15 PSI that I would typically run on that bike in variable conditions. So I think it's safe to say that the pump can work on any tire from a 3-inch volume or larger. As for a few of the specs of the pump, it is a 2200 milliamp hour battery. It does have a standard USB-C charge port. The pump also does have a light on the hose side, which is handy because sometimes you might be working in the dark trying to use it and it'll help you see what you're doing. And while I haven't fully tested the capacity of the battery to see how many uses it could get, it would be highly variable as well depending on how much air you need to discharge from it. In filling up the 2 tires you saw in the video and the 29 plus one I didn't show, I only lost 1 of the 5 battery bars. So again, it should have plenty of capacity for your average day ride. Again, according to the website, the X8 Nano comes in at 0.54 pounds and the bike specific X8 Ace comes in at 0.89 pounds. So still not too bad, but obviously heavier. And just for reference, I did throw it on my own gram scale, and I also compared it on the scale to the hand pump and the CO2 canisters I normally carry in my kit. So safe to say the Fantech pump is not a setback on that aspect. One thing I was really surprised by was the heat, or I should say the lack of it. I really expected this little pump to get hot as it was working, but I was not able to discern any change in temperature. As you saw in the video, I held it in my hand the entirety of the inflation of the fat bike tires, and this was at about a 70-degree ambient temperature, so it was fairly warm out. So my initial impressions are really good thus far. As mentioned, I will need to do some longer term testing in some real-world winter conditions just to ensure that the pump is up to the task long term. But from what I've witnessed so far, I don't really expect it to not be able to do the job for one of my typical fat bike rides, even in the backcountry. And again, I would really be using it for much more modest PSI adjustments as I'm riding. Most importantly, and the main reason for this purchase, is the pump is unnoticeable in my lumbar bag that I ride with. It's smaller and less cumbersome than the higher volume hand pump I've been carrying the last few years, and the overall weight is very similar. So actually I find it to be a net gain on the packaging aspect compared to my hand pump. And again, if you require much more higher PSI ability and you're okay with a little more cost, a little more weight, and a little more volume, I would recommend just getting the 150 PSI X8 Ace, specifically designed for bikes. If you have any questions, comments, or experience with Fantech pumps or other products, leave that down in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, drop a like down below. It really helps out the channel. And if you want to continue to follow my updates on this product and all of my other fat bike ride and review content, definitely subscribe to the channel. It's free for you and only requires a single click, and it'll help ensure you don't miss any future videos. Our first big storm is on the way, so stay tuned. Snow bike content is coming soon. Thanks a lot and have a great day.